It'll kick in. Hey, hello, hi everyone. Welcome back to How to Know Gavin. Today I am joined for another in conversation with episode, which I'm really excited about, and joined by the writer of the Eerie-on-Sea series, Thomas Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me, Thomas. Like seriously, huge fan. Been a fan of you since even before Malamander came out. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me tonight on this lovely Friday night with a nice drink, I hope. And yeah, drinking too.
I have, yeah. Cheers to you, Gavin. Thank you for inviting me.
No,
quite unusual to be doing an event where I'm allowed to drink on a thing, but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, there we go. See, it's already a unique interview. It's already like one you've never had before. So already, I'm happy with that. Do you want to introduce yourself, to say hello to everyone? Introduce yourself to the people in the chat.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Thomas Taylor. I'm the author of the Eerie-on-Sea books, as Gavin says. The first one, Malamander, came out 2 years ago. It's going to be a 5-book series, so I'm working to a 5-book series structure. Book 3 came out yesterday, so book 3 was Shadowghast, and I know we're going to come on to talk about that. Got my copy here. So it's all based on my experience of living in a seaside town, and I imagine we'll probably get into that in the discussion. But I'm also an illustrator. Maybe we'll talk about that. And yeah, so that's me. At the moment, pretty much completely Eerie-on-Sea. So
just completely absorbed in the Eerie-on-Sea world.
There are worse places to be. So.
Well, I was going to say, when Malamander came out 2 years ago with, by the way, the beautiful sprayed edge from Waterstones too, that is, I mean, a feat in itself. That was Waterstones Book of the Month. I remember it was May 2019. Was it May 2019?
It was.
Yeah. Oh my God. It was because it was my birthday. So I remember it was, it was my birthday, and I was like, it's Book of the Month for my birthday. Yay. So anyway, we will be talking about Shadowghast predominantly in this live show. If anybody has any questions, do let us know in the live chat. I already see lots of lovely people in the live chat already. But yeah, I have links to buy Shadowghast because it is out now in the description box. So if you don't yet have a copy, I've got plenty of links down below for you to go out and get it, as well as links to Thomas Taylor's social media links, so you can follow him on there. If you want any more future updates on the Eerie-on-Sea series, I will try and get everything I possibly can out of him tonight. But, in case I don't get everything, give him a follow. I'm sure he will be updating us on the next 2 books and all of that there. So spoiler free as well, so don't worry about that. So we always start with an icebreaker round, Thomas. So I hope you're ready for it. Questions I don't prepare you for. Yeah, sorry about that. I also just some comments first as well. Danny has 70 pages left of Shadowghast, trying to finish it before the live. The fact that it came out only yesterday, and Danny isn't from the UK as well, so it's such a feat as well that Danny's already started to read that much already. So yay, Danny, you'll finish it.
You read faster than I
do. Well, to be fair, I got through Shadowghast so quick. It was such a quick read. Honestly, it was fantastic. Can't wait to read Shadowghast. Mindy, I can't wait for you to read it as well. Cannot wait. Pixie wants to know about the illustration. Oh, don't worry, we will get into everything. Don't worry. So the random icebreaker round. So Thomas, the Eerie-on-Sea series is set in this very seaside town, and you mentioned that you are inspired as well by a seaside town. So can you tell me what your ideal day at the seaside is?
So my ideal day is the winter. So it's a bit stormy. The weather's a bit crap, and I'm on the beach, and I look down and I see something amazing lying on the beach because I love beach combing, and I pick it up, and I can't believe I'm allowed to just sort of pick that up. I'm the first person to find it, whatever it may be. And so that, and then when I'm really cold and wet, I'll probably go and get some fish and chips somewhere and sit in a cozy pub where there's no COVID-19 at all, and have a really nice pint of Guinness or something like that. And So I just rambled through that. I just came up with that. It's pretty much it. Well, that's
that does sound...
No sunbathing, you notice.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, that's a waste of time. You don't want to be just wasting there just lying down. If you want to lie down and sleep, you'll do it in the morning before you get there, on the night time when you get home. Now, being at the seaside, you've got to take it all in. And I love walking down the beach very close to the sea, not in it, but like very close to it, so I can smell like the sea. And like that's why I picture as well when I read this series. It gives me that kind of... I haven't been to the seaside in a while, and I live in the northeast. So we have like Whitney Bay and Cullercoats and all of those kind of places. So it's really nostalgic for me when I pick up a book and I hear see the descriptions, but I can hear the sounds, I can smell it, I can taste it. And it's just, it's very nostalgic to me. So that's one of the reasons why I love it. Meg, also so excited to read Shadowghast. Yes. And Danny says it is a quick read. Absolutely adore the atmosphere. I need to ask you about the atmosphere later as well, because I don't know how you get it like so pitch perfect, but we'll get there. So what is a hobby you have outside of being a writer and illustrator? Anything that we probably wouldn't know about?
Yeah, gosh, do you know, I love walking, and I often love walking inland. So I do walk an awful lot. I'm not sure that's a hobby though. Yeah. I mean, I just love to go somewhere where I've never been, and I walk in the forests and things like that. I've got dogs that need constant exercise, so I am constantly kind of pushed to go out. But I used to love cycling. I had to give that up in order to walk dogs, because there isn't enough time in the world to do all that. So I suppose it's that really. I just love reading, beachcombing, writing, drawing. That's quite a lot already, I think.
It is, and it would be a bit dangerous as well, cycling while walking a dog as well, like trying to do...
I've tried it. It's not a good idea. Don't try that at home, kids.
Okay, noted. So Eerie-on-Sea does deal with like a lot of like folktales and myths and legends. So for a minute, just pretend that all folktales and legends are real. Like every kind of possible legendary creature is real that you know about from legendary stories. Which creature would you not want to face the most out of anything? Like, is there a specific fairy, like folktale, fairy tale kind of creature you are the most scared of?
Well, there is one that I was really scared of when I was a child, to the point where I'm still, I still wouldn't want to meet it, even though it's probably the most... When you think I could have a dragon or I could have whatever, going for a devilish dog is probably not very exciting. But when I spent my teenage years in Norfolk, and in Norfolk and Suffolk in particular, there is this spectral hound called Black Shuck. And when I was about 13, 14, I used to go and I used to walk home from school, walk from the bus to home in the dark over a field in the footpath. And Black Shuck is this monstrous hound with fiery red eyes, think Hound of the Baskervilles. And if you see him, you're supposed to have terrible bad luck or be dead by morning. But if he follows you, if you hear him following you, he might protect you. So it's kind of really... That doesn't sound much as I say it, but when you're 14 and you're walking home and it's January and it's freezing cold and you think you can hear something behind, but you can't look, because if you see him, then you might be dead. That's pretty scary, and I still find that quite a scary idea. So I'm going to go with Black Shuck.
Yeah, that because any kind of thing where you don't know how to defeat it or you don't know anything about it, the less you know, the scarier it is. So that does sound scary, that you could just end up waking up, well, not waking up dead, but like be dead by morning. Like be dead by morning. That is just, that's terrifying, actually. That's like giving me goosebumps.
Yeah, you can't look. That's the thing. You can't check. That's the,
Yeah, that is rather scary. We might end up seeing some creatures inspired by that in a future book. Who knows? Can you actually... my next random question was, can you tell us the spookiest thing that's ever happened to you? But I feel like just that image alone is rather spooky. Is there anything else that's rather spooky that's happened to you?
Well, I mean, I had quite a haunted childhood. I mean, I look back and I was sort of terrified of everything. But I'm quite short-sighted. So I remember waking up one morning, I think it must have been in the middle of the night, and there was some light from the moon or something. And there was a figure standing at the end of my bed. And I was like completely freaked out, pulled the duvet over my head, would not look. And it was a long time before I dared put my hand out to turn on the light. And it was my dressing gown hanging on the back of the door in a way that it doesn't normally do. And that was really terrifying. So I was that kind of child. So I have lots of spooky experiences, but I don't really think there was probably anything supernatural about them. But I was constantly jumping at my own shadow. So I am a bit of a Herbie Lemon type character, I have to say. Herbert Lemon is based on me. So.
Oh, nice. I mean, I would have asked that as well, but honestly, I just love him as a character. But also, yeah, I totally get it. The kind of jumping at things, jumping at shadows, tricks of the mind, especially when we're kids, we have overactive imaginations. And it sounds like you had one since you were a kid, and it's really helped with your writing, I'd imagine, and why you're being like such a creative writer to this day. So going like a little bit different to that then, you don't have to share if you don't want to, but do you have any embarrassing author moments that you can share with us? Anything that's happened to you, maybe in an event, maybe online, anything like that?
Oh gosh, yes is the answer. But I can't think of a way to share what I'm thinking of without it being a bit tricky. So there isn't really. I haven't done a kind of I've spilt wine down my trousers 2 minutes before going on stage kind of thing. But I forget people's names or get their names wrong, and then it can be quite comical, and people take that quite badly. But I don't really have a spaghetti in the hair kind of story from Gavin. Which I did.
Maybe you'll think of one later, and then you can let us know. We'll come back to it. I was going to say, I can imagine trying to, I guess, like these book launches and book events, trying to remember everyone's name is a bit of an impossible task. Unless they've got a name tag on, then great. But it's probably,
when you've got loads of children and they really can be named anything, and I just have a tendency to pick, when I need a volunteer, to pick somebody whose name has an amazing name, which I can't then remember, or things like that. That's all. It's not really that exciting.
That's all good. What were you like when you were Herbie Lemon's age? As you said, you were a little bit like Herbie Lemon's age. Were you kind of like him? I mean, maybe not being a lost and finder at a hotel or anything, but what were you like at his age? Were you similar, different?
Yeah, I think I was a lot like him. I mean, Herbie's based quite directly on one of my sons in terms of his physical appearance. And so, I was a lot like that. And I love to search and find things and collect things and to wonder where things came from, what the story behind something I found was. Very inquisitive, very nervy, quite bad stammer, had a terrible stammer. But, pretty sort of wide-eyed about the world, and I discovered reading around that sort of time because I had trouble starting to read. And then once I kind of got the engine going, I was really, really keen. But it did take me a while to sort of find my books, and find. So I was a thoughtful child, probably a bit timid, and a lot like Herbie, I guess. And I hope his sort of kind of one-liners and things coming out, I can't really remember, but I think I was probably a bit mischievous with it. But
Well, when I read the books now, I'm just going to picture you as Herbie Lemon now. I'm just going to just like a miniature Herbie Lemon, That's,
maybe without this.
Well, even with it yet, I think that would be interesting. I
do have the Lost and Founders cap. Where is it? There, you can see behind me.
I
take it into schools and get the kids to wear it. I can't now, obviously, but
oh my god,
soon.
Soon. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I'm gonna have to get myself one of those.
I had it made for me.
I'll have to make one myself. The sea has an innate mystery to it, and Eerie-on-Sea captures that magic so well. I 100% agree. I believe I did hear a dog bark before. I can imagine, you probably wouldn't want to show one now, but on your Instagram or your Twitter, I'm sure you would have shared photos of your dogs and stuff in the past, right?
Yeah, I have. They're not actually. They're in the house because I'm down at the bottom of the garden. They're in the house because they this time of night foxes come out and they go bananas. So we'd have constant barking and running around, and it would be impossible. So I've put them in the house. But the cat might come and join us in a bit because he's prowling around. But It's a bit of a zoo here at the moment.
I love that. Foxes as well. Oh my gosh. So the last random icebreaker question before we get into the nitty gritty. Can you tell me a moment from this past year that's really made you happy? We'll end on an uplifting note.
Yeah, that's made me happy. I think seeing my eldest son kind of really come into his own, and he's 17 now, and really kind of turn into a great guy and a great young adult. It's just been wonderful, and being able to sort of move out of, you get a slightly tricky relationship when you're in your mid-teens, and he's kind of pushed through. So that's certainly something that I've really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed spending time with him, and yeah, I'm going to go with that.
Oh, I was going to say that's such an adult answer. I would have been
like, dad answer,
isn't
it? Yeah. It's a dad answer.
I would have been like, wait, what about when Shadowghast came out? Was that another? That would have been another happy moment. I mean, it was.
Well, I'm still in that happy moment. You see, Gavin.
You're still in it, exactly.
Can't get a perspective on it yet. So
yeah. Not yet. I see some great questions in the comments as well. I will ask them. Because some of these will tie in really nicely with some of the themed questions I got later on. So do keep the questions coming. I'm not ignoring them. I will ask them a bit later on. So we are going to talk about Thomas and his career, everything he's done so far, and all of the good stuff that has led to writing the Eerie-on-Sea series. So Thomas, can you let us know your origin story? Like, what was it that made you want to become a writer? So how did you get here on my hot seat today?
So, I started out as an illustrator. When I was at school, I was really encouraged to draw. I was good at drawing. So I was always pushed down that route, and I went to art school. Everybody said, we should go to art school. So I went to art school. So I began as an illustrator, and I spent more than 10 years just working on picture books, for example. And I've done a lot of picture books, and some of them I wrote, but mostly I just illustrated them. But my first job, I guess I should say, coming out of art school, I've got it here because I did wonder whether it might come up in conversation, was the cover art for a book, which some people might remember from a few years ago, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, by a completely unknown author called J.K. Rowling. Completely unknown text, and so a completely unknown author. Illustrator was probably seemed like a clever idea. I don't know. So I was about 22, I think. I just come out of art school. I was working in a children's bookshop because that's the first job I got. Was my day job was to work in a children's bookshop, and I've been able to see from being in the children's shop that Bloomsbury were creating a children's list for the first time. They'd never really published children's books before. They were creating a list, and they were kind of in hiring mode, I could tell. So I sent some samples to Bloomsbury, and to other people too, but I kind of targeted Bloomsbury, and I got a call back in the shop. I was in the shop serving customers, and the phone rang because that's the number I gave, from a man called Barry Cunningham, who wanted to know if I would like to do a book cover and maybe some interior drawings, and would I like to come into London and have a chat about it? So I said, well, so yeah, So I went in, and he gave me this enormous pile of paper, which was the book, minus chapter 11, I think. And again, I've never heard of this book, but it was a year before it was published, more than a year before it was published. So I was carrying Harry Potter through London and getting on the tube with it and reading it and quite enjoying it, way before it was ever out. Thinking, just completely focused on getting it done, getting that job done, rather than any kind of, people say, how did you do it? It's so famous, but of course it wasn't. It was just a question of getting it done, not making a fool of myself. So that's how I started. That was my first job. But usually, when you are an illustrator, especially, you kind of want your first few bits of work to be quietly forgotten because they're probably not going to be your best. You tend to get better. But mine has followed me around my entire career. I cannot escape it. So, and people ask me about it. Why did I paint this? And I have to say, well, to be honest, I was literally just seat of the pants, just to get it done, hand it in on time, and that's it. So, but after that, then, as I said, I had a period of doing picture books. So I did a lot of picture books, and I quite liked doing that. I ended up writing a lot, and that was where I really thought, I've always wanted to create my own stories, and so I kind of felt more and more tempted to try writing. And of course, in a picture book, you have quite a strict limit of about 500 words. I mean, you can go over it, but it's just you have to be so concise and so sort of structured. And I just wanted to break out and write fiction. It took me a long time to pluck up courage to do that. And I had to convince my agent that, because I already had an agent who was a literary agent, and but she had me on as a sort of extra little illustrator in the sort of corner of her list, I think. And then I had to persuade her that she should keep me on as also a writer, and that was quite tricky. Quite tricky, but she did. And and so I began to sort of work my way into fiction. So that's.
So it's always been children's fiction then? It's never been anything else? You never would have done anything older than children's fiction?
I haven't really been tempted. I mean, I quite like, I'm a complete wuss, so I horror, it terrifies me. And yeah, I'm kind of drawn to it. So I'm drawn to that dark and the mystery. Yeah. So I think if I were to write an adult novel, it would probably be, I look at Michelle Pava's career trajectory, and I really admire her, and I love her writing. And I look at the book Dark Matter that she wrote, having come out of the Wolf Brother books, and I think, that I can completely get why she wrote that. And but it's such a great book, Dark Matter. But it's I kind of like the idea of trying my hand at something quite dark and quite adult. But I kind of love what I'm doing at the moment, really. So I'm not. Yeah. Strongly tempted to move away, but there was never a moment when I tried to write a great adult novel and it didn't work or anything. That's not my trajectory at all.
It's so funny you say that you're a wuss, when literally, like, I would say, like, Shadowghast, there were like moments that really like gave me a bit of a fright. But I guess it's more like a safe kind of scare, isn't it, when it's children's fiction? So it must be like a great space to explore all of that kind of, well, darkness and things in your work. So I can, like, was there anything that you read that inspired, like, kind of your love for maybe like the darker stories, or was it just like your haunted childhood, as you mentioned?
Well, it was that, really. And you know, I mean, I think children love to be scared. So children absolutely adore being spooked up to about there. Put my hand on the screen. Yeah. But if you go above that, that's a problem. But if you come in too low, that's a bit meh, you know. So you've got to get right there, and that's quite difficult. And with Shadowghast, because it's a Halloween story, basically, I thought, well, I can probably go a bit higher than I normally do. But the way I temper it is by bringing in a kind of warmth of friendship and as much humor as I can. And there's always that sort of tempering. There are always these safe places in Eerie-on-Sea. So Herbie and Violet, they face danger. There are always places they can go where they can just be themselves, and it's a safe spot. And you know they're never going to be invaded there. Then they're going to be safe in Seagull's Diner. Just even though all around is the wild sea and the dark and the storm, just in the diner, you know, over their plates of chips, talking together, they're going to be safe there. And I think it's important to give the child reader, even if you're scaring the pants off them in chapter 7, in chapter 8, they've got a chance to sort of ground themselves and be with Herbie and Violet in the Lost and Found eating a donut or whatever, and it's sort of slightly better again. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm constantly sort of fighting with these levels.
You've got some like great balance going on there then. So like you're scaring them one moment, but you kind of like, like this is the safety net that's behind it, you know, like it's not, you never go too far.
In Malamander, there was actually a bit more gore, and it was pulled out. The editor said, "Sorry, you've gone over the line there." When Mrs. Fossil was, well, I can't say, I don't want to spoil it, but anyway, hasn't read it. But there was a bit of gore, and I was told to pull back on that.
Oh my God!
Quite rightly so.
Oh, well, you say that, but I mean, Claire even says here, I think Thomas could easily take Eerie-on-Sea dark. That would be amazing. Like, I mean, you probably could, but as you said, like, you've got to have that balance. Like, when you're, like, we're all adults here, so, like, we are used to more, like, scary stuff. But, yeah, when it comes to, like, the target audience, you kind of want to make sure that you're not doing too much, as you mentioned with Malamander. Although I would have loved that.
I'm constantly reminded that you know that slot I write for, that 9 to 12 middle grade slot. You know, there are 8-year-olds, you know, and year 4s read my books at school and things. So I really have to be careful. But I could easily imagine, actually thinking about it. The last questioner, the last commenter, I didn't see her name, but I could definitely imagine writing I could write an adult sort of mystery.
Yeah. Like a
Books,
really darker
books
one. Yeah.
Hi, sorry. And then, but I could write. I could, couldn't I? It'd be quite interesting to do something a bit darker, a bit more adult, but based in Eerie-on-Sea. Bring a different dimension to it. But,
almost like a multiverse, you know, it's just like a different version of Eerie-on-Sea, you know, you never know. Maybe this is the start of something new. Maybe this is going to be the big announcement in a couple of years' time. Well, who knows?
My brain is ticking over because it hasn't actually occurred to me to do that. So that's a thanks, Books and Ink. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Thank you. They also said as well about the book cover, love the revamp of the cover. It's subtle, but the spine of the book looks stunning on the new book. I agree. It has that kind of Eerie-on-Sea mystery on the spine there. Are all of them going to be republished with that?
Yeah, they're all of the because up until now it's been a book and a sequel. But now there's a third one. The publishers are really kind of going to town on making it look like a series. So yeah, that little, I don't know if you can see there where it says the Eerie-on-Sea mysteries. You know, there'll be that, and yeah, and also there's some new art inside. So there are these. I don't know whether you've seen that, but in all of the books, inside cover, I can't get the camera right. So this is Sebastian Eales' house on the map. So you'd be able to go, if you've got the whole set, you'll be able to see, there'll be 10 in total, 10 places that are in Eerie-on-Sea with a bit more detail. It's just to fill a blank page, because normally that's blank, and that's a bit of a shame. So there's that as well. And also, I love this. I've really wanted to do this for a long time, and I'm so pleased they agreed to have this printed in book, a book print with this book was dispensed to, and then I put their name in, and then by the Mermonkey of Eerie-on-Sea. So when I sign this book, it's a real joy. I love writing. I've got a special pen and everything for writing the name in that.
Oh my gosh, I'm bringing all of my copies down. I'm also going to have to re-get the first two now as well, so that I get the new set together too. It's fine. I don't mind. No, I mean it's great because I get to have the original versions, and then I get the new versions, so I can display it all in a row, kind of thing. It's great. It's a great way for me to, you know, keep supporting my favorite authors. So yes, re-release them all. Give me them all. Are they available to get now? Do you know? Because I haven't seen them come in, like at least the first two. I think that's still like the old editions. I think
they'll send, when they print them, they'll send me a copy. I haven't had them, but I have seen somebody sharing a Malamander with this new design.
Oh,
so someone's got one. So I think the new edition that's coming out, the latest edition, will have that. But I haven't got one yet.
So
I'd love to get them out. Just to sort of photograph them together, you know.
Yes, that's what I want as well. Just want to get them all together. So I did want to also highlight this comment from Mindy, because Mindy said, "Need that shirt." Did you just do a restock, or like are they still available? I think I saw it on your Twitter.
Yeah, so it was kind of, it started as a bit of a joke, but it's quite a fun thing. I've got a little Eerie-on-Sea gift shop, which you can only really, if you find me on Twitter at Thomas H. Taylor. And look at my pinned tweet or my profile. There's a link there, and you can go to it's basically a T-mill thing I've set up where I've done some designs that go on T-shirts. So there's a Malamander one and there's a Mermonkey one, and there are tote bags and stuff like that. So yeah, you can get those. I just open the shop now and again and to talk about it on Twitter, and I don't really make a big deal of it. And it's for charity. I don't make money out of it. The small amount of money that comes my way, I feed on to charity. So it's not
Yeah. And it helps us, you know, Eerie-on-Sea nerds get all of the merch. I love wearing this to work every now and then as well. I'm the cool kids bookseller every now and then.
I noticed you've got a Malamander point of sale cardboard cutout there.
Oh yeah, well yes, this was when it was Book of the Month, and they I don't like throwing things out after it's been used, so I adopt them and I take them home and I display them on my shelves.
I used to do the same. I used to do the same when I was a bookseller. I used to always beg and borrow and steal all the kind of cardboard cutouts or anything I liked, and I had masses of them, and it was a bit ridiculous. But
honestly, you should see the tops of my shirt. It is ridiculous. But I promise I use them first, and then I bring them home before they get binned. So do you have any? Somebody asked a question. Oh yeah. Are there any other middle grade books that you would recommend that you've read recently, or
that
inspires you?
I do. I mean, I'm a slow reader, and I get sent books, and I'm always reading them. But I read Sophie Kirtley's. Is it Sophie Kirtley? Sophie Kirtley's.
Yes.
Not the Wild Way Home, but the
Way to Impossible Island.
Escape to Impossible Island, or The Way to Impossible Island. And I
yeah.
just absolutely adored the character of Moth Girl and her wolf, and the interaction, and the whole sort of Stone Age cave girl thing. I just thought it was brilliant. So that's been a highlight recently. And I'm just about to start this, and I have started. I've been sent this proof by Christopher Edge, which sounds really good. And I've already, I always pick them up and think, I'll just read a bit. Then you end up reading, 10 pages. And then I realize, this is my 7th book on the go at once. That's not very good. So there's that. And then also this one, which I've nearly finished, but I brought it here to sort of show absolutely adoring this. Oddity by Eli Brown, which I've nearly finished, and it's not really middle grade. The character appears to be 12, 13, but I would say it's more YA, but it's just absolutely outstanding, completely brilliant, original, clever book. So really, really enjoying that at the moment.
I've seen that cover before, and it's absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So getting into Claire bought one that you blurbed by Claire Povey, The Unexpected Tale of Bastion Bon Livre, I think. Yeah. Awesome stuff, Claire. So talking about Eerie-on-Sea then, because obviously you've actually had quite an extensive career beforehand as an illustrator, and you've kind of dipped your toes into like lots of different things, and picture books as well, going from picture books to actual like chapter books. What you also mentioned that there was some like inspiration behind the Eerie-on-Sea series, or Malamander, or the Seaside town. And somebody did also ask the similar question. I want to highlight it. Or there, Tracy asked, is Eerie-on-Sea based on a particular seaside town? So like, how did the first ever idea of Malamander, Herbie Lemon, the Lost and Finder of Eerie-on-Sea, how did that idea first spark into your head and become what it is today?
Well, I always tell people that Eerie-on-Sea started when I had made the decision to stop writing. So I'd actually decided it was just kind of too difficult to forge a career as a writer, and I had I had some difficult times getting things published, and I thought, I need to just illustrate and stop worrying so much about trying to write. And it was then that shortly after that I began to have, and I had just moved to the seaside actually, and spending a lot of time walking on the beach. And I live near Hastings, and Hastings Old Town, that's probably the one place that is the most like Eerie-on-Sea. If you wanted to go somewhere to walk in the streets and feel a little bit of Eerie-on-Sea, Hastings is the place. And I began to walk there, and also Eastbourne. I'd see the pier, and I've always known the sea. I've always known the seaside places, but I've never lived right on the seafront or right in a seaside town before. And then I began to experience what that's like in the winter, because of course normally you maybe wouldn't go so much in the winter. These places are quite sort of closed up, and I began to see how very strange and mysterious, first how odd the weather is, and also how interesting the beach is. Far more interesting in the winter, like I said, than it is in the summer, as far as I'm concerned. And I began to see, well, who is still in town, in the winter, who hasn't gone anywhere, or who lives here all year round, and what are they doing in the winter when everything's sort of shut and closed down. And that's, you start to meet some interesting characters. So I found myself kind of slightly licking my wounds as a writer, thinking, well, I've had a go, but it's not worked out terribly well. Walking along, noticing all this stuff, and then I began to kind of feel that I was almost walking with characters who were coming with me, on my daily walks on the beach, and began to wonder about them. And I've always been fascinated by hotels. So, because they're just a strange place where you go and it's like a temporary home, and who's there, and they come and they go, and they might leave something, and why, and what's, all that sort of stuff. So I had a hotel in my, I was beginning to build a kind of seaside town in my head, I think is what I'm trying to say. And I was populating it with people I was meeting, and people I was hoping I would meet, but perhaps never quite did. And it sort of grew from there, really. And I began writing the book in secret. I told my wife even, no, I'm not going to write anymore. It's too difficult. No, I'm not. I finished with all that. Told my agent I wasn't going to write anymore. And I ended up writing 2/3 of it just kind of in spare time, in the background. I'm not even sure I was ever going to show it to anybody. And it was only when my agent said, "You've been very quiet. What do you want to have you got anything you've been working on?" And I had to come up with something, and that's all I had. So I said, "Well, I have actually been writing a book." She said, "Well, can I see it?" And it was really her reaction to it that kind of changed my view of it then. And then I hastily finished it, and it went out to publishers, and
It sounds a little bit like when you first started writing it, you didn't really have an idea of it being a full series then, did you? So when you started to, write it in secret and things, how different did it end up becoming by the time it was published? Like Malamander, and like, I guess you weren't thinking end game. Were you thinking it was just going to be a standalone, like a beginning, middle, end, or?
I think when I was writing it, I was just kind of playing with it really, and I was thinking a lot about what would make a really great middle grade adventure. What do you need to make a really great middle grade adventure? So I was just putting all this stuff in, but I once it went out and I began to get reactions from publishers, because it was, in the end, it was the subject of an 8-way auction. There was a lot of interest in the book, which was very exciting. And while that process was going on, and I became aware that it was going to be published, I began thinking, well, what do I do with this? Because it just seemed immediately that it was this material was too rich for one book. 3 books emerged out of the auction process, so it was never a trilogy in my mind. But during the course of the auction, publishers would add another book and to the deal, so it became a 3-book deal by the end of the auction. But I realized quite soon that I think there's more than 3 books here. And so I've been working to 5 books for a long time, but I had to be careful because I had a 3-book contract. So, I was talking to the publishers about the plots for book 2 and book 3. And then they were sort of saying, well, you're not really resolving anything in the book 3, are you? And I said, well, not really. So it was all a bit of time to kind of, negotiate all of that. But Walker had been brilliant. And, they did sign up 2 more books. I had to sort of tell them what I wanted to do with the characters and convince them. But I've always thought there's enough material, not just that I've created, but in the core inspiration of a seaside town. There's enough material for a 5-book series. Maybe a 7-book series is pushing it, but 3 books just didn't seem enough. So 5 just seemed like a magic number. I like 5 because there's a first book, there's a last book, there's definitely a middle book, and then there are 2 books in between, and it just makes me happy.
I never thought about that, and I don't really know that. Well, actually, I think Percy Jackson and Heroes of Olympus, like those kind of books have that kind of structure. There's not that many other middle grade books or children's book series that I think have 5, but I might be totally wrong. But I love that idea as well, actually having the definite beginning, middle, end in the 2 books in between as well. But it's, you mentioned it, like this is quite a rich world, and it would have been such a waste if it had just been the one book. Like seriously, like, you just have so much like potential just sprouting from like what happens in Eerie-on-Sea and all of the influences it has. So I guess one of the main reasons why I know I love it and why lots of people love it are the characters. So you mentioned, we've already discussed Herbie, but we also have Violet Palmer. We have a whole colorful cast of characters. But Meg also asks, what's your favorite kind of character to write, a hero or a villain? And you do write some great villains over the first 3 books. And Tracy mentioned it before as well. I want to get this. Sorry, I will let you speak. But like Tracy had a great comment about the Hookman. Oh, the Hookman from Malamander gave me the heebie-jeebies. Agreed. So the characters, like, what's your favorite to write? Like, do you have a specific favorite character you like to write, hero or villain?
I think I like to write Herbie the best, but I do like the villains. I mean, the character I like the least, which is the easier question to answer, would be Mr. Mollusk, who's just horrible. He's just horrible, and I really made him really horrible in book 4. But I kind of can't help myself. But I love writing him because whenever he's present, he's interacting badly with Herbie, so it gives Herbie the chance to shine. So actually, he's a great character to write, but he's really not very pleasant to think about. But but the villains are great. I mean, I can't talk too much about the villains because it might be a bit spoilery. But I do love an antagonist. I like to have somebody who because I got some exploring to do in book 5. Again, I don't want to do any spoilering, but there's going to be quite a big exploration of some backstory going on there. So I'll be able to explore somebody's backstory quite a bit in that one.
Oh my gosh.
To maybe justify some villainous behaviour that there might have been.
And as well, yeah, I know it's really hard because I say like spoiler free, but then it's so hard to talk about, especially Shadowghast as well. I think in my reading vlog of it as well, I tried to skirt around a lot of the stuff that happened because even saying some of the main plot points was almost spoiler-esque. So I try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. But Pixie with Pen said, oh my gosh, I'm Swedish, but I lived and worked in Hastings Old Town for a summer a few years ago. That is almost, dare I say, eerie. I mean, the fact that you're here now, yes, it kind of is, and we love that.
Well, hello, hi from Hastings.
Yes, yes, and hopefully they can come back. Yeah, and hopefully they can come back as well. I've never been, and I'm sure it's a beautiful, beautiful place as well. So one of the main attractions of your series is the mechanical mermonkey, and as we saw this front of Shadowghast, we have that beautiful illustrator page. What was it like? How did you come up with that? Because that is just like a genius part of the every time I sell Malamander 2, or like when I'm talking to customers about it at work, I always mention the mermonkey, and everyone's always really fascinated by it. Like, how did that genius idea come to you?
Well, it's actually a hangover from another book. So I had this idea a long time ago about a slightly magical bookshop, which was called Monkey Books, and it had a mechanical monkey and a typewriter that chose books for you. And then all I had was that. I had that idea, and then in the shop there was the owner of the shop, and then there was an author who came in a lot who might have been a bit dodgy, and I could never quite do anything with all this. I like the setup. And I love the monkey, and I'll tell you a little bit why that monkey kind of exists. But I couldn't work out what to do with this idea, and it was only when I was creating Eerie-on-Sea that I remembered this strange shop plus an owner plus an author that I kind of realised this is where this magical bookshop's got to be, and so that's how I put it in. So it comes from a different book, which was never written, but the kind of basic idea about the mermonkey is that you know when you pick up a book by chance and you sort of begin reading it, and then you get hooked, and then you spot something in there that seems relevant, and it almost feels like you were meant to pick that book up or read it, or there's something there that speaks to you and you weren't expecting it at all. I've always been fascinated by this. It's just serendipity, I suppose, but I like the idea of it, and I just thought there's just some way of kind of building a machine that does that. So that's where the mermonkey came from.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah.
I really wish that I could come across it so it would give me the book that I needed, not necessarily the book I wanted. Like sometimes especially working in a bookstore as well, I see all of these books and I think my favorite book, or just like a book that I need to read, could be in here somewhere, and I just may never ever come across it. There's just something so magical about that as well. So I just absolutely love it. I love this comment as well about the character names. I totally forgot to ask this, but like character names like Herbie Lemon, Violet Palmer, we have these really creative character names, like in very sweet confectionery kind of based. Was there a reason for that?
Well, I've always called sherbet lemons Herbert lemons for some reason. So it's become a bit of a dad joke to bore my children with in the car on long journey. Who wants a Herbert lemon? Ha ha ha. So that name was kind of that came with it. So Herbie to his friends. But then I knew he was going to be part of a team. There was going to be another character with him, and that she needed a name that sort of fitted that, worked in the same way. And I really struggled to find a kind of sweet or confectionery kind of based name. And it was only after a long time that I remember Parma violets from years ago. When I was a child, we used to have Parma violets. And I just remember them as being not very nice. And so I had to go out and buy some, because you could see how it would work really well as a name. So I thought, great, I found it, but they taste horrible. So I went out and bought some and came home, and they taste quite nice. And in fact, I ended up buying them far too often, and I would have a bowl of them and I'd be eating them while I was writing. And that, at my age, that's not a good idea. So, but then once I had those two names, I realized I couldn't roll that out across the whole town. So then I hit upon a different kind of naming convention where everybody else is named after something to do with the sea or the seaside. because in the first book you don't really know who you can trust, and so the idea that everyone's name is a bit fishy, it sort of worked. So that was the naming convention, but I'm not sticking to it too rigidly as I move into the next books, because it could get a bit stale if I stick to it too rigidly, I think.
I'm sure there's probably enough material there for you to continue doing the names like that, but I totally get it. Like, you might not, might get it, but also I have faith and trust that you would be able to pull it off. The great question by Tracy, and actually ties into my next question about mythological. Mythological. I never know how to say that. Mythological creatures in the books. Did you always want to introduce them? But also, we do have this like weaving of seaside folktales and fishermen folktales and things. Especially in Gargantis, I remember it was very prominent in Gargantis. Do you do any research for like those kind of myths and legends, or is everything you incorporate in Eerie-on-Sea like just pure imagination?
I mean, it is pure imagination. I really want to create my own legends and my own monsters, because I could go to the drawer and pull out the sort of mermaids and the pirates, but I just feel like I kind of want to try and see if I can avoid that a bit. And I just love, and I love making them up. And it's quite hard to get them to work, to make them seem real, because they, in Gargantis, the fish fly. This giant fish flies in the sky in the storm. I mean, that's weird when you say it like that, but I have to write it so that it feels like it might be real, and that's not easy. So, but I don't really read. I don't specifically go out and hunt folk tales, but I'm very open to, if I hear somebody telling an old story or an old tale or a ghost story about the seaside, and there are so many. The sea's kind of haunted. I think people are. They're always seeing and experiencing things in and around the sea, so it's a very rich vein to explore. But no, I do like exploring my own monsters. Yes,
I love that. But also maybe the demonic dog in who knows?
I haven't quite worked. Yeah, I can't quite see it unless I give him some feet, maybe. But there is a sort of because in the first book, obviously there's this sea monster, the Malamander, and then in the second book, I thought, well, I'm in a seaside town. I need to go out to sea. I need a boat. I need to be in a storm. So that was the storm book. And then the third book, Shadowghast, I wanted to come back to the town very specifically and talk about something to do with a seaside town. And so the theatre at the end of the pier seemed like a really good place to have a story. So it's less sort of sea based, but it's still very seasidey in my view. And then in the fourth book, we discovered the long locked up waxwork museum in Eerie-on-Sea. And there's ghost train things connected to it. So there's another element, another aspect of seaside life that is. And then in the fifth book, there'll be quite a bit of sea again, because we'll actually see the Malamander again in the fifth book. That's not a spoiler. That's just a little thing. So there'll be, but there's something else. That's not the monster in book 5. There's something else. So yeah, book 5 is going to be quite epic. I'm quite excited and slightly terrified to write it.
I can imagine. I mean, all of that sounds amazing, by the way. Like my excitement it knows no bounds. I agree with this as well. Your legends really feel like they have a very old history. They always feel like they could be real. One of the things, it sounds like you're continuing this throughout the rest of the series, and especially in Shadowghast, as you mentioned, we focus on this theatre. So, have you managed to be able to say what Shadowghast is about in like so many ways? Because whenever I ask authors to explain their book or just like tell us what their book's about, some of them find it a little bit tricky to just condense it down into something. Have you managed to do that, and can you tell us what Shadowghast is?
I'm terrible about that. I'm just terrible at doing this. People say, "What's your elevator pitch?" And I say, "My elevator pitch is I'm standing in the elevator, my mouth's going out like that, and nothing's coming out, and then the elevator has arrived." So, but anyway, basically, it's Halloween in Eerie-on-Sea, and a stage magician, a mysterious stage magician, has come to town to put on a legendary magic show, which is supposed to be performed at Halloween in Eerie-on-Sea, which is called Ghastly Night in Eerie-on-Sea, so it's a bit different. And there's a magic trick that she performs that maybe she shouldn't perform, and it's connected to this creature called the Shadowghast. And if you don't know what the Shadowghast is, you only have to look at the front of the book, to see that Herbie and Violet are on the stage with a light, and you see their shadows in the background, and then there's a third shadow there, but there's no body casting that shadow, so you get a sense of what kind of story we're in. But this mysterious stage magician doesn't only come and do that; she also claims to have some knowledge about who Herbie really is, which adds a twist to the whole story. But I can't talk more about that without being really spoilery. But
that's very true. But we do get some more information, or at least because one of the biggest things about the Eerie-on-Sea series is the mystery behind Violet, even Violet's past in Herbie's past. But you do we do move in a direction, don't we, in Shadowghast? So I think people will still be really happy with how it turns out.
I'm trying to keep those questions afloat without kind of resolving them, because I'm saving them up for the last book. But I think it's important to keep reminding the reader as they have a new story to read, because each book should be read. It should be possible to read them on their own. That's my aim. But I do want to keep those sort of things rolling on, and then that's what book 5 is about. It's about resolving all those things.
So sometimes I forget that, there is a book series, and we do have to wait until, either the last one or, I don't know what plans you've got for the 4th one and what answers we're getting there, but that's fine. I will find out eventually, and then, it'll be great. Of all of the books that you've written so far in the Eerie-on-Sea series, so Malamander, Gargantis, Shadowghast, was this one, Shadowghast, was it one of the easiest ones for you to write, or one of the hardest, or what were your challenges while writing the 3rd book in the series?
Well, the 3rd one has been okay, actually. It was probably, I wouldn't say the easiest, but in many ways, it might have been the easiest one, because I've already established the world by then. So I'm exploring new parts of a world that already exists with characters that I've already set up. So that did make it easier. In fact, the hard one was Gargantis. That was really, really hard, actually, because suddenly I've got this 2nd book. Everyone loves the 1st book. That's great. People have been really nice about it. Fantastic. But I know they're all expecting the 2nd book to be just as good. And so, how the hell do you do that? I've got 9 months, from to finish it. And so I was
Malamander was in secret as well, wasn't it? So Malamander, you had all the time in the world, I guess, to write it. Then when Gargantis came, you actually had a deadline.
Yeah. And that's the classic thing with authors, especially when you're writing, you have your 1st book published, is that you might have been writing that for 10 years, and then that's great. And you've put masses into it, and it's really rich. And then the publishers say, fantastic, now we need 2nd one. We need it in 9 months or whatever it is. So I'm not complaining, but it is a challenge. And I kept thinking, people are going to hate it. They're going to think it's not as good. It's going to be. So I had terrible I really kind of felt a massive lack of confidence while I was writing it, and really kind of, I just really worried about it, and was amazed when people liked it as much. And I don't know, because it's really, really bad. It's really hard to judge your own work when you're writing it. You just don't really know. And I'm a bit of a fretter and a worrier, and so I'm hammering away thinking, is it any good? I don't even know. And it is quite a relief. But the 2nd one was really hard. Even coming up with the title was really hard. So Shadowghast came like that, really. And Malamander came really easily. But Gargantis, I had to drag that out of my imagination after months of agonizing and changing the name. So anyway, that was the hard one. So Shadowghast came a lot more easily. And the 4th one, which is going to be called Festagrim, that's come pretty easy as well, actually. Although I'm having some trouble editing it at the moment. It's nearly finished, actually, but it's thrown up a few problems. They always say it sort of throws up problems at a later stage, and you think, oh my god, what am I going to do?
You know what, as well, because I was going to ask, can we say the name of the next one? Because Danny had asked, you don't need to mention it, but is the title of the 4th book included in Shadowghast? And it is, because the 1st chapter is at the end of Shadowghast, isn't it? The first, and honest, I love the name as well. And also, Danny, you said you had an assumption. Was that the assumption? I'm very interested to know what you were assuming, Danny, what the title of it will be. So do let us know, because I'm really interested in that. With the Eerie-on-Sea series so far, there hasn't been a week book or middle middle book syndrome. The books get stronger. Say you should, pat on the back. No. It'll get stronger and stronger. Yeah, I love the second book as well.
Kind of you to say thank you. I'm pleased, really relieved to hear that. Yes. Oh, you've got a proof copy of Gargantis. Yeah.
You know what was a really funny story? I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you before, but back in March 2020, my very last week working, I had asked Walker for a proof of it because I saw it come up on Publishers News, and I was like, I am desperate to read this book. Like, please send me it. So fortunately, they sent it to the store the day before we closed down for lockdown. And if I had not got this, I probably wouldn't have been able to have read it as early as I did. But honestly, I was so happy when I read it. It was fantastic. I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
Danny says there was something in a certain chapter. I don't want to spoil it. Should I send you Danny, send me the photo and I can ask Thomas after if you want, because I'm really intrigued. I'm so intrigued. Anyway, sorry. Shadowghast. Back to Shadowghast. So how do you think people will react to the new characters in this? Because as you mentioned, there is a new magician. Do you think people will like her, not like her? Like, what do you kind of hope people will take from her introduction in this book?
Well, I suppose I hope people will be uncertain whether or not she's quite what she seems, and whether or not is she really a villain? Is she an antagonist? Is she? I want to keep some uncertainty floating around that figure in the book. So this is the thing with these books: is I'm writing about a town, and obviously in the town there are lots of people, but I have to keep the character list quite tight. So I introduce this character plus a small entourage that can come with her. And that, for me, is I can't introduce anyone else at that point because there'll be too many people, because it's just too sort of you kind of get lost in the details. So each book has only a couple of new people who get introduced, so they're very important. I have to really sort of flesh them out and work on them. And so this theatre troupe who come to Eerie-on-Sea are the new people in Shadowghast. But I do want people to be kept guessing, quite who they are and what's going on there. I don't want it to be too clear.
Honestly, I thought I was going to head in a certain direction, and then it just took me in a different direction by the end of it. And I was like, okay, that's not what I was thinking at all. And I genuinely thought I'd crack the case, and then I got to like the last few. And I was like, well, no, I'm wrong. Like, how should I like figuring it out. And you know what? It makes sense. Like, it's not one of those things where it doesn't make sense or anything. Like, but I was just like, I wanted to work this out myself, but I'm sure there will probably be people who can, but I just didn't. And I thought it was very surprising. So
I am trying to sort of play with that thing you found surprising. So there's a fourth book to come, and now I've got to find a way to be surprising about it again. And we'll see, won't we?
No pressure. So you did mention Festagrim. You said a little bit about it before. So did you say that you've written it, but now you're just editing it now? Is that right?
Yeah. So the first draft was finished a while ago, and
oh wow.
So I'm meant to be. They're going to be pestering me soon, but I'm meant to be finishing the second draft, which is just kind of tightening it up with it after the editorial report, and then there'll be a line edit, and there'll be quite a lot. I haven't done the drawings yet, so the book exists, but Shadowghast was delayed, so the whole thing is a bit out of whack, if you see what I mean, because it should have been published in May, and so actually it's come quite late, and so the fourth book is quite far advanced compared to the schedule, if you see what I mean.
Nice. So,
I mean, it's barely come out, and I'm about to start writing the fifth book. So it's you can see it's all a bit,
Yeah. So, do you have any idea when we could expect Festagrim? Or
well, I mean, it's tricky because my books are published simultaneously in the US and the UK, and in the US they need a much longer run-in to publish a book. So they really want finished text for a year before it's published.
Wow.
Whereas in the UK, it could be 6 months. So, it could be published next May. We could go back to the May schedule, but I suspect it's going to be September next year. So there was a lot of period when Shadowghast was just sitting there, months and months waiting to come out. So it's frustrating, but publishing is a mysterious business. I can't pretend to understand how it works, but they need that lead-in time, and the US is a big place. They need to get around everywhere with it. So,
and we need the series to be worldwide, so we're fine with that. We're fine with that. But yeah, I guess September time for this book, it does fit as well. I mean, of course, like May, you have like the spring going into the summer, but like with we get all the Seaside vibes that we kind of want, and it was like the perfect book of the month during May, for example. But yeah, like with Shadowghast, I feel like September, October time is like the perfect time to read it. Especially as you said, like Halloween is featured in it, or Ghastly Night. So do you enjoy, like Halloween and incorporating things like that in Shadowghast? Like, was that a fun? Well, actually having your own sort of unique twist on it, because you have your own kind of traditions in Eerie-on-Sea to do with Ghastly Night. So do you like Halloween? Like, do you like all of that kind of stuff?
I love Halloween. Yeah, I do. I really do. And I love carving pumpkins. So I go a bit mad when it's pumpkin time. I just love carving them. So keep an eye on Twitter, because I'll be posting all my slightly weird pumpkins on Twitter. I like all that sort of thing. And I like to sort of put my own little stamp on it as well, though. So I think the challenge is always to find some different way of spinning it, because it's there are lots of books about Halloween, so you've got to find a way to make yours a bit different. And that's what I've tried to do. But yeah, no, I do, and I love to see I love it when trick or treaters come and knock on the door and open the door, and there are little sort of witches and goblins there, and like sweets out. I'm very excited about it.
Two different people here. I always like, I'm terrible. Turn the lights off and pretend I'm not home. I'm that kind of person.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. I mean, there's room for us all, but I do love that. It's good for kids. I think that's why. And I like because it's that slightly dark horror sort of mystery spooky thing, which has kind of always been there in my life. It's seeing kids kind of lance that slightly scary boil by dressing up and kind of owning it. It's a good thing. And anyway, that's what I think. I do love it for my niece and nephew. They have the best costumes, and it's for them. Although I do love watching like all the Halloween movies, the or like Halloween-esque movies. Not Halloween as in the horror movie franchise, although I do like that. But like things that have Halloween in it, like Hocus Pocus and stuff like that. I love stuff like that. And being able to read spooky books like Shadowghast, which again, everyone, links to buy it is in the description box. So please do go ahead and do that. And I also, because it's released pretty much simultaneously with America as well, isn't it? So I think, is it out now in America, or is it like a week or so? No, it's coming, I think it's the 14th of September. So it's coming in a couple of weeks.
So not long to wait at all then, actually. I do think I got a link for that in the description box as well. I'll double check, and if not,
it's a really lovely hardback. They always make a really lovely book, and it's a really beautiful edition, and it's illustrated by Tom Booth, and he because he illustrates it really quite richly, quite fully, far more than I do. So you get to see a lot more. It's good. The hardback.
I was going to say I love the American hardback cover of Malamander. The eye, that one. Yeah. That one's
they changed it from they started off on that sort of very sort of strange and mysterious big eye kind of format, but it's they've altered it now. But that first hardback had that big eye on it, and some people loved it, and some people were terrified of it apparently. So
that's what I wanted.
People would go in the shop, and the owner and the bookseller would say, "This is great. You'll really like this." And they'd hold up the book, and this huge eye would stare at the child, and they go, "I don't want to read it."
Oh my gosh! If we had that at work, like at Waterstones, I would hide it. Like, as in, like I'd have it face out in different sections, and like maybe if someone like took a book down, and like Malamander would be behind it with this big eye, and they'd just like get the biggest fright of their life. I think that would be hilarious.
You
now
can
I'm a
put one beside the other, like two eyes staring from.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's actually a little bit terrifying. Cheryl's put their books on hold at her library. Yes, like they are so good. I always recommend them, especially reading them this time of year as well. So yeah, that's pretty much all my questions. You were so like fantastic at answering questions that in advance as well. Like you covered so like honestly, ideal interviewee. That's the word. So thank you again so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. And I really do hope everyone discovers Shadowghast. And if they haven't read the first two books yet, then please do. So they are a great series. Thomas, do you want to say anything to the viewers before we leave?
Just thank you for tuning in and listening to me rambling, and thank you, Gavin, for inviting me. And everybody have a great ghastly night when you get there. Keep your manglewick candle lit, and just happy reading. And yeah, thanks again, Gavin.
No worry, honestly, anytime. Thank you so much for joining me again, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next interview. Bye, everyone.